I am 17 years old and I'm here writing this to vent. So this happened recently and I'm still very upset. So in my family, I'm the expert photographer. Oddly, I didn't study photography, nor do I have any interest in it. But according to my family, I have that magic touch, whatever that means. But this magic touch often makes me the designated photographer for all sorts of things. Occasionally, I help my mom take pictures of documents and upload them to the cloud for her. So I'm familiar with the right amount of lighting required to get the best images. So on to what happened. My dad needed me to take a picture of a laminated document. If you've ever taken a picture of a laminated document, you'll know that laminated documents can be a pain, especially with their reflective surface. So I was doing my job and using natural light to get the best shot. And when I was done, my mom and I both agreed that the pictures looked good. I don't know why, but my dad felt like it wasn't good enough and turned on all the artificial lights and insisted I use the flash. I did as he said, and the artificial light left a white patch on the image. And when my dad asked if that image I took was better, I simply replied, I argue that it's worse. I didn't have time to recollect my thoughts before he hit me across the face. My mom was shocked as my dad accused me of being disrespectful. I just stood there crying while my mom tried to explain to my dad that he had misheard what I said. Then he dropped this bomb. It doesn't matter what she said, but what I heard. I didn't stick around long enough to hear anymore and just left the room. I've been in my room and have been ignoring my father's attempts to reconcile with me. I'm just too upset and annoyed, and this is not the first time something like this has happened. My mom has been trying to cajole me into forgiving my father, but this one incident is making me bitter and bringing up bad memories. It doesn't help that they're trying to guilt me, saying that I should forgive and that anger does no one any favors. So am I the idiot? Edit. It's only maybe an hour or two and you all have made me feel so much better. I want to clarify some things. 1. I can't go live with a relative. My family is scattered all over the country, so no close family members nearby. 2. I saw a comment saying that my mother is enabling, and I want to shed some light on the subject. My mom has never for one day supported my dad hitting me. Her trying to cajole me was more of an attempt to calm me down. I've calmed down now, and my mom has reassured me that I haven't done anything wrong and that my father was the wrong one. 3. As a commenter showed concern about this incident and the fact that it brought up bad memories, and sadly, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. The bad memories stem from an incident where my father beat me, and I had 2 small open wounds on my face that my mom bandaged up for me. The worst part about that incident was that I had school, and I had to lie to teachers and my friends that the injuries on my face were a result of me falling down the stairs. 4. I saw some comments saying I should file an attack charge against my father. And I'm sorry to say that's not possible. The justice system of my country doesn't take cases like this seriously. If not, my dad would long be in a lot of trouble. 5. The only reason I felt I was maybe a jerk was when my dad said that since I've received Holy Communion, I'm Catholic. It would be a sin for me to still be angry with him. Sorry for the formatting, I'm on mobile. Update 1. Thank you everyone for the comments and advice. I've started to seriously reconsider some things about my relationship with my parents. I've never thought of my mom as an enabler. One commenter asked if my father's rage was only directed at us kids, and I'm once again sad and embarrassed to admit that we aren't the only ones who bear the brunt of his anger. My mom and one other woman aren't so lucky either. I've realized that I've been making excuses for her, but I honestly don't know how to feel about her. Long before I found out my dad was hitting her, she would always tell me to leave any man who would hit me. She would tell my sisters and me over and over again never to let any man hit us, and that if we do put up with such poor behavior, we could only expect even worse in the future, and that we should leave any man who put his hands on us. Which is why a part of me is confused and scared when she didn't leave my dad after he beat her so badly her face was swollen and bleeding. My parents argue sometimes, but I've never seen them physically fight. All I know is that one day I heard a loud crash and my mom screaming at the top of her voice saying, "Samuel, not my dad's real name. Do you want to unalive me in this house? Come back and finish the job then." My siblings were all scared, as this was the first time we'd seen our parents fight. I still remember my younger brother crying, and I was simply holding him, not sure what to do. As far as younger my siblings know, my parents got into a fight, but only my older sister and I know that my mom's face was swollen and bleeding. Another incident I feel I should mention was one with our part-time live-in nanny Lucy. Lucy was a woman who looked after us since our parents were busy with work. I was around 10 when this happened. One day Lucy hit my brother, I think he was snooping around her things, and he went crying to my dad. The next thing I heard was screaming and shouting. The next day when I saw her, she was covered in bruises and had a black eye. My grandmother was the one who ended up consoling her. As a child, this incident didn't set off alarm bells in my head until my grandmother reminded me of it some years ago. And before anyone jumps to conclusions, this was my maternal grandmother, and my mother had traveled. She reminded me of this incident, and when I pressed on, she told me she was surprised that Lucy did not want to press charges against my father or even report him to the police. And my grandmother, feeling bad, gave her some extra cash to compensate her. Hitting me and my mom is one thing, but I shudder when I think of how bruised and injured that woman was. She stopped working for us shortly after. I don't know why I'm writing all this down. I guess I just needed to get it off my chest. Hopefully, before the end of May, my admission letter from uni will come, and I can finally leave. I'm not going to go no contact, but I will have minimal contact with my dad. My school fees aren't going to pay themselves, and I'll be better off just playing the long game. Update 2. Thank you all for your advice and reassurance. I would like to clear some things up. I'm no longer in school. I've since graduated, and I'm waiting on admission. I don't want to mention a country, but I will tell you all I live somewhere in West Africa. I don't want to be too specific lest someone I know finds this post and connects the dots. Lastly, someone asked if Lucy was an illegal immigrant. No, she was not. I believe that the reason she didn't report my father is that we paid her a lot of money as a salary, and perhaps she didn't want to lose that as she was a single mother caring for her young son. Lastly, I've never thought of my father as hurtful or my own mother as enabling. I always thought enabling was showing support, but you all have made me realize it can also come in the form of doing nothing. The reason I've never thought of my father as hurtful is that my mom would always tell me that I shouldn't judge him by the things he does in anger, and that he loves me, regardless of what he does. I have 4 other siblings, and I just assumed that this was somehow natural. 2 sisters and 2 brothers, he has hit all of us, but my mom and I are the only ones that have had injuries that bled. I'm lucky I have no permanent scars, and they healed up nicely. My mom has small ones, but they can easily be passed off as black spots or moles. And for those of you asking why she won't leave my father, I honestly don't know. I've asked her this before, and she just told me, life doesn't always work out like that, and that this is what it means to be married. Hearing her say those words scared me. It may come as a shock to a lot of you Western folk, but from the moment you turn 18, even before then, as a woman, you are already of marriageable age. My grandmother was 18 when she got married. My mom got married when she was 22. She was dating my father, who was her lecturer in uni. Final update. I want to thank all you lovely folks who commented. When I first posted this, I wasn't expecting the response I got. Maybe I was looking for sympathy or others to relate. But what I wasn't expecting was you all to call my dad abusive and my mom enabling. I took a while off Reddit to really contemplate what you guys have said. I was in denial. I told myself it couldn't be possible. I've always loved Reddit stories and have read a lot about hurtful parents. But my goodness, I've never thought of my father as hurtful. Seriously, I owe you guys one because you all slapped my rose-tinted glasses off. And once I started viewing all my father's previous actions, weighing them as hurtful or not, I could not stop. Suddenly, so many things started to add up. What's worse is I'm eerily used to it. The beatings, guilt-tripping, and religious emotional manipulation. Heck, I could barely sleep because so many instances kept popping up. I want to thank you all so much because I needed to hear it from the horse's mouth. And I want to thank all of you for making me see that enabling is not just showing support. It can be in the form of doing nothing. I know my mom will never divorce my dad, but it's not an excuse for him to hit us. Whenever I think back, I get so angry, hurt, and confused. I always thought my family was okay or normal and that my dad hitting us was nothing more than a minor skeleton that should be kept in the closet. Looking back, the things my mom said to justify him make me even angrier. She would say things like, "Don't judge him by what he does in the heat of his anger," or "Some men are like that." And her personal favorite, "Despite what he did, your father still loves you." I come from a culture that encourages spanking children when they do wrong, but as I look back, I haven't done anything to warrant it. This man never laid a finger on me during my childhood. He only really started to get physical when I approached my teen years. I feel especially angry when I remember certain instances that just make me want to scream. I'll share some of them with you. Instance no one. When my siblings and I were trying to find out who left dirt in front of our home when my dad just lost it and hit me, this resulted in me getting badly beaten and my face needing to be bandaged. My other siblings managed to run away. My younger brother and I got hit, but I was the only one who needed to be bandaged. Later, my dad tried apologizing, but I quickly shot that down. Instance no two. I was having a hard time waking up to prepare food. I tend to sleep in late, and my dad leaves early for work while my siblings and my mom leave later in the day. For the third day in a row, I hadn't woken early and his meal was running late. My dad works as a businessman. I don't know what position he holds, but he travels a lot. I don't know why he chose that profession. He should have become a boxer because I was on the floor in seconds. My mother consoled me and told me a hungry man is an angry man. And because of that, I get up an hour early to start cooking. One commenter asked about my brother maybe standing up to my dad. Sorry to disappoint, but he's 15 with the body of a 12-year-old girl. He's not fighting anything off. And yes, he has taken beatings for us. This is going to be my final update as I wanted to clear this up. Thank you all so much. If it weren't for you all, I most likely would have continued living life like my situation was normal. I'm just waiting for my admission to uni so I can leave. I will continue to be in contact with my siblings if I leave so I can make sure that they are all right. Thank you so much. You guys gave me the reality check I needed. If anything major happens, I'll update, but for now, goodbye and thank you. I'm not against anyone posting this, but I beg you to keep this post off Facebook. Now, for a few comments before the update, comment 1. Not at all. Do you have the means to get out of that hurtful home, maybe stay with your aunt or a friend? If so, I would do so immediately, especially if he has guns at home. You could and should bring charges against your father for attack. Not attempted actual attack, but at the very least have a restraining order against him. He is a repeat offender. I would advise you to fully explore your legal options, including going to the police, but please don't do anything rash and illegal. Comment 2. Personally, I'd report him for domestic violence and let the world burn around me. He does not deserve your forgiveness. He's hurtful and a garbage human. And your mom is awful for supporting and making excuses for him. Yeah, anger certainly didn't do your face any favors, did it? I'm sorry you're stuck in this terrible situation with hurtful parents. Leave as soon as you can. Now, for the update, thank you for sticking with me through this. Things have escalated since my last update, and I'm still reeling from the fallout. The day after my last post, my mom sat me down for a serious talk. She said she had something important to tell me, something about my dad that would explain a lot. Turns out my dad has a whole other family. I'm talking about a wife and kids who live in a different city. My mom found out years ago, but kept it to herself, thinking it was best for us kids not to know. She said she stayed with him because she didn't want us to grow up without a father. I couldn't believe it. My dad, the man who preached about family values, had been living a double life this whole time. I was furious, not just at him, but at my mom too. How could she keep something like this from us? It felt like a betrayal. I didn't know what to do with this information. Part of me wanted to confront him, to make him pay for all the lies and hurt he's caused. But another part of me was scared of what he might do if I did. The next day, things went from bad to worse. My dad found out that I knew about his other family. He didn't even try to deny it. Instead, he got angry at my mom for telling me and accused her of trying to turn us kids against him. They had a huge fight, and I mean huge. It got physical, and I tried to step in to help my mom. That's when he hit me again, harder than ever before. My mom screamed for him to stop, but he was like a man possessed. After he calmed down, he did something I never thought he would do. He apologized to me, said he was sorry for everything. He promised to change, to be a better father and husband. He even talked about getting help, going to therapy or something. I wanted to believe him, I really did. But how could I trust anything he said after all the lies? I made a choice then, one I thought was right. I decided to give him a chance to make things right. I told him I would keep his secret, that I wouldn't tell my siblings or anyone else about his other family. I thought maybe this was a wake-up call for him, that he would change for real this time. But I was wrong. Just a few days later, I found out he was still seeing his other family, still living that double life. He hadn't changed at all. He was just better at hiding it. And now I'm stuck keeping his dirty secret, protecting a man who doesn't deserve it. I feel like I've let myself and my mom down by choosing to believe him. I'm counting down the days until I can leave for uni. I can't wait to get out of this house and away from all the lies and violence. I just hope my siblings will be okay without me. I'll do my best to stay in touch and make sure they're safe, but I can't help feeling like I'm abandoning them. That's all for now. Thanks for reading and for all your support. It means more than you know. Goodbye for now. My nephew joins a dangerous protest against women's rights, so I teach him a lesson in feminism and watch him beg for forgiveness. I moved back home last year. I am a 30-year-old female. I've essentially become a caretaker for my mom, who is 68 years old and who's been in and out of the hospital for the past 2-3 years. About 6 months after I came back home, my older sister, who is 40 years old, and my nephew, who is 20 years old, moved in as well. First, my nephew moved in because after he went to college, my sister downsized to a one-bedroom and no longer had space for him. So there was a lot more room in our parents' 4-bedroom house. He lives here and goes to school. Then after my nephew came over, my sister decided to not renew her lease and came back home as well. Both my sister and I were added to my mom's lease as she rents. On one hand, I was cool about it because it meant I had less pressure on me. My older sister is a way better cook than me. So while I can take care of day-to-day errands, she's better at taking care of the home. But her son is such a little jerk. He used to be a nice, kind kid, but somewhere between 16, 18, he fell into the alt-right/manosphere rabbit hole, and I realized it pretty quick because he started making comments that I would see men saying on Reddit, YouTube, and Twitter. Once I approached him about it, asking if he's been listening to Andrew Tate and Kevin Samuels, and he was shocked that I knew that he was. I told him that he was too young to be listening to bitter, jaded men, and that their views on dating were toxic and misogynistic. It went through one ear and out the other. He's become more jaded and more mean-spirited over time, which has impacted how he relates to his mom and to me. He's very disrespectful. He would say so many crude comments to my sister that I would never allow my son to say to me if I had one, saying once to her that nobody will ever marry her. Eventually, my nephew and I had a blowout about 2 years ago for an unrelated reason, but still kinda related because of how disrespectful he's gotten. In result, I was originally against my nephew coming to stay with us because I knew this about him and knew that he would impact the atmosphere in the household. I also knew he didn't care about me or my mother, his grandmother, because he's ignored all of our phone calls in the last 2 years since then, only getting in contact when he needs something. For example, he had the nerve to ask me for $500 after blocking all of my calls. And my mother was in the hospital for 2 months last year. He didn't call or visit her once, but when he moved in, he expected to have full complete access to her car and got upset when my mom eventually told him no. I told my mom before he came that maybe he shouldn't move in, but she ignored my warning, saying it was final, that she wanted to help her grandson out while he was in college. Now, after a few months, she sees how disrespectful he is. Now that she stopped letting him use the car, he completely ignores my mom, his grandmom, and me for the most part, and is just very unpleasant to be around. His mom, my older sister, excuses everything he does. I can easily see why he behaves this way. He never faces any consequences whatsoever from her. Again, I wouldn't mind just living with my mom and my older sister, but her son is a piece of work, and my older sister becomes a different person around him, protecting him even when he's clearly in the wrong. Last week, my mom got into an argument with him because she needed his help with something, but he wouldn't answer her phone calls or her yelling his name from downstairs. He does that. He ignores people. You have to scream outside of his door and knock 20 times like the police, or else he won't answer. It's so disgusting. My mom was really upset over it and really doesn't want him here anymore, but can't put him out now. She expected me to say something, but I told my mom that it's her fault for allowing him to come in the first place when I warned her about how he was. There's been more events, but it's too much to write. She apologized for not listening to me, but it's too late now, unfortunately. Was I a jerk? I told my mom I'm planning on moving out after our lease comes up for renewal. But was I wrong for saying that? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. But I am a property manager. Anyone can be evicted with cause. If an individual is not on the lease but dwelling in the unit, I have many options. But my bottom line is, if you are not on the lease, you are not living on my property. The liability is way too high. If you really want him out, your landlord can very easily do it for you. Comment 2. You are not the idiot, but your mom should give him an ultimatum. If he doesn't change his attitude, then he needs to find his own place. Since he seems to think he is the man, then he should man up and do it himself. Now for the update, thanks for sticking around for more of my life's chaos. So, the other day, my sister dropped a bomb on us. She's been seeing someone for a while now. And guess what? She's pregnant at 40. I mean, I'm happy for her, but with everything going on, it's like, can we catch a break? The guy she's seeing, he's all right, but he's not exactly stable. Works odd jobs, moves around a lot. My sister's convinced he's the one, but I'm not holding my breath. And with her being pregnant, she's decided she's not going anywhere. So much for my plans of a quieter house. Now, my nephew, he's been acting even weirder since the news. He's been staying out late, barely home, and when he is, he's locked up in his room. I thought he'd be thrilled about being an uncle, but it's like he's avoiding the whole situation. But here's where it gets messy. I found out why he's been so distant. He's been hanging out with this group from school, and they're not just into the whole manosphere thing. They're planning some kind of protest against women's rights. I overheard him talking about it on the phone. My blood ran cold. I mean, this is my nephew, and he's getting involved in something dangerous. I had to tell my sister. It was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. She didn't want to believe it at first, but I showed her some messages I found on his laptop. She was devastated. We both were. It's like we don't even know who he is anymore. We sat him down, tried to talk some sense into him. It turned into a huge fight. He accused us of invading his privacy, said we were trying to control him. He stormed out and didn't come back until the next morning. The tension in the house is unbearable now. My sister's been crying a lot, worried about her son and her baby on the way. My mom's health isn't getting any better with all this stress. And me? I'm caught in the middle, trying to keep everyone from falling apart. I've been thinking a lot about what to do. I can't just leave my family, especially not now. But I also can't keep living like this. It's taking a toll on me, mentally and physically. Then 2 nights ago, something happened that changed everything. My nephew came home and he was different. Quiet, almost scared. He asked to speak to us, all of us together. He told us he went to that protest, but when he saw what it was really about, the hate, the anger, he couldn't do it. He walked away. He apologized to my sister, to my mom, to me. Said he was lost, looking for something to make sense of the world, and he took the wrong path. It was the first time in a long time that I saw a glimpse of the kid I used to know. We're all trying to figure out where to go from here. My sister's talking about getting him some help, counseling or something. My mom, she's just relieved he's safe and starting to see sense. And me? I'm cautiously hopeful. Maybe this is the wake-up call he needed. I'm still planning on moving out, but maybe not right away. I want to make sure my sister's okay, that she has support when the baby comes. And my nephew? I want to believe he can turn things around. So that's where we're at. A house full of tension, a baby on the way, and a nephew who's finally showing signs of change. It's not perfect, but it's life, and we're dealing with it the best we can. Thanks for reading. My brother's wife tried to erase my dead sister's memory, so I stood up for my niece and watched their marriage crumble to dust. Okay, this is confusing even for me because, to be honest, I don't even know what I did wrong. I'm not trying to be the am I the angel, but I really don't understand what I did wrong or if I'm missing information. My 37-year-old female, first sister-in-law, Sophie, 39-year-old female, passed away 5 years ago from an illness. 1 year ago, my brother married his new wife. I live on the other side of the country with my family, so I don't really see them too much or know his wife very well. But the few times I saw her, I thought she was a nice woman, and my mother likes her a lot too. I talk every day with my niece Esther, 15-year-old female, but not too much with my brother. Sophie was really talented at everything, from crafting to sewing dresses, blankets, making porcelain cups, paintings, etc. So all of us in the family have a lot of things that she made. Sophie and my brother met in high school, and she used me to model the dresses she made, so I was very close to her, like a sister. Before she passed away, she gave me a big box with all her clothes that she knitted by hand. There are many dresses, blankets, and even tops that nowadays seem to come out of Pinterest. There are also a few notebooks with her art. I've been keeping that box for years because I always thought it would be really special to give that surprise to my niece when she turns 15. She always asks me about her mother and asks me to tell her stories about her, since my brother doesn't talk to her about it. I traveled with my family to stay with my parents and celebrate Esther's birthday. My husband told me that it would be nice to give her the box in private since Esther is very shy, and I thought it was a good idea. I had planned to give her the box at her birthday party with the whole family, but it's true that Esther is very shy, so I went to my brother's house. He knew I was going but didn't know about the surprise or that the box had those clothes. I thought it was going to be a pretty surprise for him, too. My brother called my niece. His wife was there, too. When Esther opened the box and I told her that it was all from her mother, she was very excited and so happy that she instantly grabbed one of the dresses to go and try them on to see how they fit. I thought it was a beautiful moment until I noticed my brother's and sister-in-law's faces. My sister-in-law was crying. I thought she was happy, but she left the living room with an angry face. To be honest, it left me too confused since the times I saw her. She was very friendly and charismatic. I asked my brother if everything was all right, and he started telling me that I was really out of place by gifting his daughter those things in front of his wife. I told him that they're clothes Sophie made, and he told me, "I don't care. You made my wife feel belittled." As if the clothes were a nuisance to him. I was just too confused and angry because I never said anything bad about his new wife. The moment was about Esther, but I didn't want to fight to not make Esther feel bad. So I just stayed for a few minutes with Esther until I left. Also, my niece sent me a message saying she's sad because she had an argument with her stepmother and dad, but didn't tell me why. We talk every day, but she usually keeps a lot of things to herself. And I don't want to pressure her to tell me what happened now. I talked about this with my husband, and he doesn't understand what I did wrong either, because my family really likes my sister-in-law. I never had too much dialogue with her, but we got along well the few times we talked. Edit. I talked to Esther, and she said she doesn't think her father and stepmother want anything to do with the clothes. But if she feels like they're going to do something, she's just going to take the clothes to my mother's house, although Esther laughed at that possibility and said that her stepmother is not a bad person, even if she reacted that way. I also talked to my brother, and he told me the same thing as that day, that I made my sister-in-law feel like the other woman. I apologized, but I still maintained my position that it was Esther's moment. I will talk with my sister-in-law to fix things like mature people. Now for a few comments before the update, comment 1, "Oh no, talk to your niece and see about getting those items back. Next thing you know, stepmom is liable to destroy them or take them away or give them away. Make sure you tell your niece that you want to make sure the clothes are protected, because if they are at her house, stepmom could do something with them when your niece goes out or to school. Those clothes cannot be replaced, and she would hate her dad and stepmom forever if they did something to them." Comment 2. Not the idiot. The ones at fault are your brother and his wife, who can't allow Esther openly talk about her mom. Talking about and missing Sophie takes nothing away from your brother's new wife. Nobody was comparing them to each other. But living in a household where nobody can speak about your mom? That's not healthy. How special that you saved those things for Esther until she was old enough to truly enjoy and appreciate them. What a thoughtful gift. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around for the update. So, things went from bad to worse. After the whole mess with the birthday gift, I thought it would be best to clear the air with my sister-in-law. I went over to their place, ready to apologize and explain. But before I could knock, I heard shouting from inside. It was Esther, going at it with her dad and stepmom. I hesitated, but figured family sticks together, so I went in. Turns out my brother and his wife wanted to donate all of Sophie's handmade clothes to charity. Esther was furious, saying it was the last piece of her mom she had. I couldn't believe it. My brother, who once cherished Sophie's memory, was now acting like he wanted to erase her. I jumped in, defending Esther, and things got heated. My sister-in-law accused me of trying to replace her, and my brother said I was disrespecting his new life. I left with Esther and the box, both of us in tears. Back at my parents' house, Esther clung to that box like a lifeline. My mom was livid when she heard what happened, and my dad, well, he's never been one to get involved, but even he couldn't hide his disappointment in my brother. A few days later, Esther's stepmom showed up at my parents' house. She had a change of heart, said she overreacted, and wanted to make things right. But Esther was done. She told her stepmom that she didn't want her in her life anymore. It was harsh, but can you blame her? Then, as if things couldn't get more tangled, my brother showed up, divorce papers in hand. He said he realized he'd been trying to force a new family dynamic that just wasn't working. He wanted to focus on being a dad to Esther without forcing her to accept a new mom. I was shocked. I mean, I never liked how he handled things, but divorce? Esther decided to stay with my parents for a while. She needed space, and honestly, so did my brother. He's been trying to make amends, but it's going to be a long road. As for me, I'm back home now, still processing everything. I never wanted to cause a rift, but I guess sometimes standing up for what's right can have consequences you never expected. Thanks for reading this mess of a family drama. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.